So my background is as a performance scientist, so using sensors to monitor professional athletes to determine how ready they are to perform and what type of training they need. So I ended up working for a US tech company after an acquisition, and I would be based remotely, so in Australia and New Zealand, and I spend my whole mornings in meetings. And then in the afternoon, when the US had finished up its normal working hours, I'd say, okay, it's time to get into deep work. And I'd often struggle. And my thought kept coming back to, well, am I fatigued or am I just being lazy? And I generally pushed through because I didn't want to be lazy. However, the right option was probably to take a break because I was fatigued. But that led to this idea of, can we actually measure that? Can we objectively answer, am I fatigued or am I not, so that I can make the right decision and be able to continue to work and be productive later in the day? Some people refer to flow as being in the zone. Personally, refer to it as a relaxed concentration state. So it's when you're completely immersed in your activity. So you've been able to block out all other distractions and you're completely lost in what you're doing. Most importantly, it's associated with our optimal work performance or any type of task performance. Physical fatigue would set in after you do sustained physical activity, and mental fatigue is quite similar. So if you have high levels of mental load for a sustained period of time, then you can become fatigued. And at that point, your mental performance starts to reduce. Equally important is if you let that fatigue creep up to really high levels, then it could be really difficult to recover from. And then the rest of your day can be a write-off in terms of actually being able to achieve anything. Pylot did a lot of its own research to develop the algorithms that run our product. Firstly, there was a lot of controlled trials to simulate certain environments and situations. And then once those algorithms were able to be developed to measure both flow and also mental fatigue, then we looked at the impact that they had on performance. We actually used competitive e-sport or video game players to do that because it was a cognitively challenging task, but the task itself also had a clear outcome, so a win, loss, and lots of stats to support that. So it was a bit more clear when we compare that to, say, work, for example, which doesn't have a lot of that supporting material. So what we found there for flow, interestingly, is that the average player, if they're just in a normal state, will generally win about 50% of their games. So when they were at a high level of flow compared to a low level of flow, then their win rate would actually be about 13% higher. So that's pretty substantial difference there. Similar in terms of mental fatigue. So when a player started playing a game and they had a high level of mental fatigue, they would lose 12% more games. So when the mental fatigue was at a low or a medium level, then it didn't have an impact at all. But once it got to that high level, it had a significant negative impact. Similar results are reported in some published literature, especially when it comes to flow. There's been quite a bit looked at there in areas such as mathematical challenges and also driving simulations. And they found very similar results to what we found in the video gaming performance. The mental fatigue is a little bit more challenging. There's less science supporting that. There's plenty of science supporting the use of EEG and heart rate variability to assess mental fatigue, but there's less published research that actually looks at the impact of that mental fatigue on task performance outcome. So overall, it took us 2 years of research to develop those algorithms and then validate them in the field. We're very happy with both the accuracy of them and also the impact or the prediction they have on your task performance.